Welcome to the monthly webinar of the World Survey Association. In this webinar of today, our guest speaker, Professor Yuni Kageyama from Meika University in Tokyo in Japan, will explore national parochialism by introducing a survey-based measurement approach using data from the World Survey, from our survey, and also from our sister survey, the European Value Survey. The study validates this new measure by confirming its alignment with experimental findings and identifying key demographic and political correlates, such as sex, education, political ideology, native status, age, and economic security. And it is showing that individuals in socially insecure positions tend to be more parochial. In addition, this research uncovers that the COVID-19 pandemic heightened national parochialism, highlighting both the potential and limitations of policy intervention aimed at mitigating its effects. Our speaker, Professor Kageyama, is Professor of Economics at Meika University in Tokyo. He's specializing in economic theory, population economics, the biological basis of preferences, and studies of happiness. He holds a PhD in economics from Osaka University and has conducted research at institutions such as the University of California, Berkeley, and the Max Planck Institute for Demographic Research in Germany. His work explores the intersection of economics, demography, and behavioral studies, with a focus on topics such as national parochialism, fertility trends, life satisfaction, and economic decision-making. Professor Kageyama has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals, contributing to discussions on happiness, demographic transitions, and trust in institutions. His recent research examines the role of personality in political trust, cultural and economic influences on well-being, and how demographic changes shape economic behavior. Professor Kageyama is an active member of various academic associations, including the National Union for the Scientific Study of Population, Population Association of Japan, and the Japanese Economic Association. I'm welcoming Professor Kageyama to our talk, and I would like to give the floor to him for his interesting webinar speech. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. My name is Junji Kageyama from Meika University in Japan. The title of my presentation is Measuring National Parochialism and Explaining its Individual Variations Using Survey Data. This paper was published in Social Indicators Research in 2023. So in this presentation, I follow the paper and I add a little bit of new information as well. Okay. So what is parochialism? This is basically the same as in-group favoritism. People tend to be more altruistic to members of the same group, such as family, sports team, ethnicity, religious group, and nations. So national parochialism can be defined as in-group favoritism towards members of the same nation. And two consequences arise because of this human tendency. First, it produces national unity. But second, it also promotes conflict with other nations. Russian invasion of Ukraine is a good example, and actually it was one big motivation for me to start this research. So previous studies, they use experiment to measure national parochialism, such as dictator game and ultimatum game. In these studies, main findings are that national parochialism is ubiquitous across countries, and male, less educated, and politically right wings are more parochial. The present study, we use survey data instead of experimental data and introduce a new measure. Advantages of using survey data are threefold. First, it contains rich socioeconomic and demographic information, such as income level, marital status, education level, employment status, and so on. And then it contains more observations, as it's much cheaper to collect survey data than experimental data. And for the same reason, it contains more countries. But it also comes with disadvantages, and there are two disadvantages. First, it's of course noisier because that experimental data are collected specifically for their own purpose. In this case, measuring parochialism. But survey data have more wider purpose to collect. And second, survey data can measure attitude, but not behaviors. So there are two disadvantages here. So because of these pros and cons, survey and experimental data can complement each other. So structure of this presentation, in this next section, we discuss data and measurement. And specifically, we introduce a new measure of national parochialism and assess the validity of new measure. Then we perform regression analysis. We explain individual variations of national parochialism and examine the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on national parochialism, asking if the pandemic makes people more inward-looking. Then we conclude. So moving to the data and measurement. First, data set. We use World and European Values Survey 2017 to 2022, third version. This is a cross-country data, a cross-sectional data, and then it contains about 150,000 observations across 48 countries. And third version was the newest version available at the time of research. And we select countries that complete the survey by the end of 2019 to remove the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. We assume that that pandemic made people inward looking. So we wanted to get rid of that effect. Then the observations number become about 100,000 across 66 countries. Later, we assess the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Later, to assess the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, we focus on countries that conducted the survey both before and during the pandemic. These countries are Armenia and the Netherlands. So questions we use is closeness. Closeness is a new item in WVS and EBS. And then the survey asked, how close do you feel to the country that they are living? And how close do you feel to the world? So closeness measures perceived social distance toward the country and the world. Then the respondent was asked to choose either very close, not very close, or not close at all. We reverse a numerical order. Then we measure national parochialism by taking the difference of closeness towards one's country and the world. The equation looks like the one colored by red. National parochialism, NP, equals closeness to one's country minus closeness to the world. So it shows the emotional premium of one's country over the world. And NP, our measure, takes a value between -3 and 3. And higher NP means more parochial, more premium on one's country. And 0 means not parochial at all. And negative values means that discounting one's country rather than putting premium on one's country. And here's distribution of national parochialism. And about 37% of people here are not parochial at all, and about 35% of people are slightly parochial. And not so many people take the negative values. And then we look at the difference between females and males. And it shows that males tend to be more extreme. Like here, the about 5.5% of males answer that takes value, negative values, -3 to -1, whereas the same figure is about 4.8 for females. Also, if you look at positive 3, about 4% of females answer that takes value 3, whereas for males, it's about 4.8%. So males tend to take extreme values. We'll use this information later. And this is a cross-country comparison. And most parochial country in my data is Azerbaijan, which shows that the level of national parochialism is about 1.3. And then it's followed by Japan, Greece, Bangladesh, Georgia, Finland, South Korea, Chile, and so on. And Australia is here, Taiwan, and then Malaysia here, and Germany here, Great Britain, United States, Italy, France, Brazil, Nigeria, Spain, Pakistan, Philippines, and Tunisia. So the difference between the most parochial country, Azerbaijan, and the least parochial country, Tunisia, is about 1.0. This difference seems to be quite large, actually. So these are the cross-country differences. So now we move to check the validity. So we compare our measure to the one in the experimental method. So specifically, we compare our measure to the one obtained by Romano and his colleagues. They measured national parochialism in 42 countries using experimental method. And 31 countries overlap with present study. So we compare our measure natives only because that native and non-natives are quite different. So we compare our measure to the one in Romano and his colleagues at the cross-country level. We expect that two measures are positively correlated. And here is the result. Horizontal axis here shows measure in Romano and his colleagues. And vertical axis shows our measure. And each dot shows each country. And it looks like positively correlated. And correlation coefficient is about 0.48. And there are two outliers here and here. And this is Japan. And this is the Philippines. If we remove these two countries, the correlation coefficient exceeds 0.6. So considering that these two studies take totally different approaches, we still have a positive correlation. And it's actually quite encouraging for me that our measure is not something, our measure is something we can use. And we also compare our measure to other related WVS variables. And it's not shown in the paper. And then this is our measure, national parochialism. And this is trust difference between in-groups and out-groups that I construct. And this is national pride. And this is whether the person fights for country or not. And this is Romano's and his colleagues' measure. So comparing with these WVS measures, then it seems like our measure correlates most with Romano and his colleagues' measure. So it's also provides us some confidence that we can proceed. We can use our measure to study further. So now I move to the regression analysis. First, we explain individual variations. Dependent variable is national parochialism and NP. And then the explanatory variables are native status, born in the countries that survey is conducted or not, sex, age, educational level, marital status, parenthood, income class, employment status, and country dummies. We use OLS with cluster robust standard errors. The results do not change with ordered logit model. And the observations number is about 100,000 across 66 countries. And this is a result. Here is a result for all the observations. This second column, all NP, shows a result. It shows that native status is positively correlated with national parochialism as expected. Here, being male is insignificant. We'll come back to this issue later because it is significantly positive in previous studies. Then age class, so it seems like age is positively correlated with national parochialism. And education level, and it seems like, it is negatively correlated. So getting a higher education lead to less parochial. Moving to the marital status, we find that the married and widows are more parochial compared with never married. And parenthood has no impact. And income class is surprisingly we couldn't find any impact except the 10th decile. We'll come back to this issue later too. And moving to employment status, we find that retirees are more parochial, but it could be related to the age class because age class is in age class 65 and above are summarized to one category. So retired may have got the impact some from these old people. So now question here is why is male insignificant in the previous analysis? So we thought that it could be due to the tendency that NP takes extreme values, 3 or negative values, as we've seen before, among males. So we divide the observations in the middle, NP being equal or greater than 1, and NP being less than 1, and regress separately. And this is a result. This third column shows the upper tail, the result for the upper tail. And this fourth column shows the result for the lower tail. First, looking at this male coefficient, it becomes significantly positive for the upper tail. And then it becomes significantly negative for the lower tail. So these results indicate that males are more parochial, and at the same time, they discount their own countries as well. So in short, its result indicates that males are more discriminatory. So looking at the other result, native status, it becomes insignificant here for the upper tail, whereas it is still significant for the lower tail. And married as well, it becomes insignificant here. And widow, the same result, parenthood, the same result. And income class, it becomes significantly negative for the upper tail, whereas it is mostly insignificant lower tail. So generally speaking, we can expect that being rich means less parochial. But we may have such kind of impact here, but it's still a bit blur. Then moving to the employment status, students become negatively correlated to national parochialism for both tails, and unemployment becomes positively correlated here, as expected. So summary of the result here. National parochialism relate to innate attributes that we cannot change, such as native status, sex, age. And then those socially unsecured tend to be more parochial, less educated, low income, employed, unemployed, and widowed. Then these results are consistent with materialistic insecurity hypothesis. Then it's not shown here, but it's written in the paper that extending the model will also find that national parochialism is significantly correlated to mothers and fathers' native statuses, mothers and fathers' educational levels, and political ideology. Now move to the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So countries we use is Armenia and the Netherlands. The WVS and the EVS are respectively conducted before and during the pandemic in these two countries. Actually, and the newer version of WVS EVS allows us to perform the same tests in other countries, but I haven't done that yet. So we regress Armenia and the Netherlands separately. And dependent variables, national parochialism, the same. And then explanatory variables are the same as those in basic model. And then we omit country dummies because it's not necessary anymore. And then we add pandemic dummy, which takes value 0 if the survey is conducted 2019 or earlier, and takes a value 1 if the survey is conducted 2020 or later. And then we use the OLS with robust standard error. And this is a result. Pandemic dummy becomes significantly positive for both countries. So it shows that national COVID-19 pandemic raised national parochialism. And these results are consistent with mere exposure's effect, which tell us that exposure to the other culture open up people's mind. So moving to the concluding remarks, main result. National parochialism calculated survey data is compatible with the ones in experimental studies. We confirmed the finding in the previous studies that national parochialism correlated with sex, educational level, and political ideology. And we add new findings to the literature that national parochialism correlated with native status, age, marital status, income class, employment status, as well as both mothers and fathers' native statuses and educational levels. Then moving to policy implication. I believe that managing parochialism at the population level is an important policy agenda. And downside of our findings is that the parochialism does not vanish, as it's related to innate factors such as sex and where you are born. This set a limitation to policy intervention. But upside of our findings is that 70% of people are at a healthy level of parochialism, takes the value about 0 or 1. And also that our findings shows that providing socioeconomic security would contribute to replace parochialism. So a bigger problem seems to be government and political forces that stir up xenophobic sentiment for their own interest. So we have to be rational, not be agitated by such factors, such forces. Now moving to future research, explaining cross-country variations. I tried a little bit, but I haven't got any convincing result yet. And problem is that we have data only for 36 countries at the macro level, depending on country level and depending on country level variables. So the data we have to use the macro data, so we can the sample number becomes quite limited. So as a result, I have not convinced at any result yet. And then we also need to test the impact of religion too. I tried a little bit of this, and then it seems like belonging to the major religious denomination in the nation is very significant. So, for example, being Catholic in Italy makes people parochial, but being Catholic in England has a different impact. So we have to control this kind of things too. Then closeness questions. Finally, the closeness questions in WVS and EVS seems to be useful for various purposes. Closeness is asked separately for city, town, county, region, country, continent, and the world. So we can use them to measure various types of perceived social distance. So using these closeness questions, we can use them for various purposes. Okay, thank you for listening. Any comments, welcome. A bit early.
Thank you very much for your interesting talk. Now we have a question answer session, and you can either write on the chat your questions or you can raise your hand and ask directly our speaker. So Yutaka Nagashima is asking, what is the definition of native?
Yeah, so here, sorry that here, born in the country that survey is conducted or not, is a definition of native. So if the person is born in the country that survey is conducted, I assume that person is native.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have a question before the questions start fully. In the UK, we had also a WVS survey and an EVS survey before and after Corona. You are analyzing Netherlands and Armenia, but I think UK could also be used to measure the impact on Corona because we have a survey before Corona in EVS and a survey after Corona in WVS, just as inspiration for future research.
Thank you very much. Yeah, probably it was not contained in third. Oops. Yeah.
In the data set,
in the data set,
maybe
yeah,
about the
third
data set
version.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I should test if it's the case in newest version.
Yeah. But if you get a newer version, you can also compare not only Netherlands, Armenia, but also the United Kingdom to measure the effect of Corona because we have EVS before and WVS after.
Yes, thank you very much. I should do that.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other comments, questions? I don't see all participants. There's another question by Yutaka Nagashima. What do you think would be the appropriate level of national parochialism? You said 0 and 1 is apostrophe healthy. What are the grounds and justification to call this healthy? Why are you labeling these two categories as healthy and the other not?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I don't have any ground for saying that healthy level of parochialism, national parochialism. I think everybody agrees that zero means not parochial at all. But it seems like a human tend to be attached to the family or the group that they belong to. So that's why I call the level one as still a healthy level of parochialism. But I have no ground logical reason to say why it is healthy. It's just from my impression.
Yeah. Thank you. I have a question about age groups, because you are saying that older generations are more parochial than younger one. Is there a chance that by demographic change, by the older disappearing and the younger coming, the level of parochialism will be decreasing just by age?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So this means if everybody gets old, this gets more parochial too as well. But this data set, with this data set, I cannot differentiate age and cohort effect.
Ah,
So it could be due to the cohort effect. So we have to use other like a time series data set if it's available to test this hypothesis.
I agree, yes. We need panel data for that because we have only cross-sectional data, so we cannot measure the cohort effect. That's true.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, Professor Buranen is the principal investigator for Sweden of the WVS. Professor Buranen, please.
Yeah, thank you for a very interesting presentation. I was thinking about when you discuss differences between countries to use cultural zones. Have you thought about that? We have seen something quite interesting when we looked at Africa on comparisons. You mentioned the importance of also include religion more into the analysis. And one could see something quite interesting. For example, sub-Saharan Africa, you have quite many countries where you have a Christian population, majority or half of the population are Christian and the other half is Muslim. And you can see some really interesting divisions in between these two. For example, when it comes to emancipative values and the look upon family and how strong family values are for people. And it seems like there are values that are stronger than religion actually, because you can see them shared also, whether you have the Protestant Christians in sub-Saharan African countries or Muslim, there is very little deviations in between them. While if you look at Protestants up in the north, the country I come from, Sweden, there are huge differences. So I don't know, do you have any ideas about how to handle the question on religion when you have Protestant religious people in Africa and you have them in North, and they are so totally different?
I see. Thank you for the suggestions and comments. And actually, I have no idea about it. The survey asks the denomination of the religion, so we can differentiate like Catholic, Protestant, Muslim, Buddhist, and that, like not believing anything. But if there's big difference between, say, as you say, Africa and Sweden, even though they're the same Protestant. One thing we can do is to include the interaction term between country and the religion, but I don't think it's still not enough to capture the effects that you mentioned. So maybe we have to get through the literature very carefully about it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because if I just may add, Christian, a short comment, we tend to kind of blame being Muslim when it comes to the deviations in the values, but here it demonstrates that it's something more deeper than that, which I think is interesting when you talk about native parochialism, to get the search into these in-depth values behind that might have been there for thousands of years.
Right, yeah. Actually, that's probably one reason why I didn't get into religion in this paper. I mean, it's too, if I thought I need another additional paper to discuss religion. So yeah, thank you for the this information. I think you are right. Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe it's a separate paper, the religion. I have a question about education, because the theoretical assumption would be the higher you're educated, the less parochial you are. Did you compare primary, secondary, tertiary education? I'm sure I think you did. But the question is, why was the impact of education not stronger than supported by the theory? Obviously, there seems to be other factors which are diminishing the effect of education on parochial values.
Here and this is the result here, and I compare lower middle education against tertiary educations. The reason is that because lower education, the people in the answering lower education is quite few in some countries. So I thought it's better to just adapt lower and middle education. And then taking tertiary educations, hopefully it's open up the mind to the world, or that those who open up the mind to the world go to the tertiary education.
Okay. Thank you. There's a question by Yutaka Nagashima. If I understand correctly, you found that some problems like poverty, unemployment, etc., are correlated to higher national parochialism. Are there research projects that found higher, lower parochialism causing social problems?
I see.
In the chat.
Yeah, I saw it. Thank you for the questions. I don't know any research project checking this reverse causality. It's quite interesting, and it seems like there must be some kind of such kind of force, but I have not seen any of this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, the correlations you found about correlation to innate factors, that's why you said policy interventions are difficult.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we don't know, even if it were possible, we don't know what we should aim for.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mm.
So, are there any other questions, comments to this interesting presentation? By the way, the webinar is recorded, the video, and it will be on the YouTube channel of our project. So you can send your friends the video if they haven't chance to be in presence. So the value survey is publishing all our webinars as a YouTube video. All right, so there is a question from the value survey. Do you think there might be any cultural differences in how people interpret closeness? Do you think the question on closeness works the same way in Japan or say in Brazil?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thank you very much. And then, yeah, I just saw the question items in English and in Japanese. And then between Japanese and English, it seems like meaning seems to be quite the same. So, but I'm not quite sure in other languages, but maybe you know better than me. But what do you think?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Well, we know from our work in the World Value Survey that there are translation issues. The translation matters a lot, and we also know that we do have translation issues, particularly when we are trying to transfer some of these concepts to other cultures. In principle, closeness perhaps would not be the most complicated concept to translate, but I did not work with these variables that much to really conclude. I was just wondering that since you worked with the data for Japan and other countries, perhaps you looked into the translations, because closeness can mean something, probably a certain degree of emotional attachment, but how exactly it's interpreted by every respondent in the first place, and also depending on the translation, that might vary a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. And also, just let me add one thing that our result here include country dummies. So such kind of language difference could be absorbed by country dummies. Thank you.
There's also the question of definition of closeness versus identity. Do you identify with your city, with your region, with your country? So closeness and identification is not the same. So it's difficult to compare it.
All right.
I have a question about Azerbaijan. Do you have any theory why Azerbaijan is the winner of this scale? Because Azerbaijan is quite rich. So it cannot be poverty which is causing parochialism, because it's an oil and gas-rich country. So they have high economic GDP per capita. So why? So one might assume that countries like Albania or Egypt have a lower GDP, but Azerbaijan cannot be explained by economic weakness. There must be something else which is causing this high level of parochial patterns in Azerbaijan.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, country difference is quite interesting. And for Azerbaijan, I thought it was because of the conflict with Armenia. During that time, the Azerbaijan and Armenia had a conflict, so it made them more like inward-looking.
Maybe that's the conflict in the region between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I agree. This is a good potential explanation.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are there any other comments? You get many ideas from us for future research. There's a comment by Yatuka Nagashima. Japan, Finland, and Chile are all relatively financially wealthy countries in this sense.
Yeah, so country difference is quite interesting, but I'm not quite sure yet. And maybe it's a good research topic for everybody. And yeah, it seems like East Asian countries like Japan, South Korea, China, Taiwan, these countries areas seems to be on the right side of the in the figure. So I think there's some cultural reason why there must be some culture behind these differences, but I think we need to look at other factors before depending on the culture.
Yeah. Thank you. Head of the Secretariat, Xenia.
Thank you. I was just thinking that there are perhaps two layers here. One side, what causes national parochialism? But the second question is what can cause some countries feel more or less close to the world? I used to work a little bit with this variable, and it is usually, so the respondents are quite well responding to different changes in geopolitical situation. So if, for example, there is a country at war like Russia, other countries, many countries in the world, obviously not all, but they try to isolated from trade, from transportation, and this also causes how less the citizens of the respondents in this country feel less connected to the rest of the world. So in this way, I wonder if national parochialism can be considered a more or less stable national trait, or is it indeed as dynamic as, for example, feeling of closeness to the world? And if we assume that national parochialism is a more stable national trait, maybe it changes with generations, but don't change that rapidly over the years, then maybe a more complex aggregated measure would be better suitable here. They're just thoughts aloud. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, yeah. I think it's stable in some sense, but it's actually complex because that the pandemic, the 2-year pandemic can change the level of like national parochialism, but still it has some stable like a country like based level of parochialism, and if we can get to that level, it would be quite interesting.
Yeah. And also one could compare different waves of the WVS survey to see the long-term trend, because you are analyzing one wave basically, and if you go back to previous waves, you might have some longitudinal pattern which might be interesting for your research.
Yeah, I wish I could, but closeness questions are new in the
Ah,
WVS Wave 7, so I'm waiting for the
that's
wave,
true.
if it's included or not.
This is a new invention by us.
Yeah,
That's
closest one is
correct.
trust. Yeah, sorry.
That's correct.
In the previous
Okay.
rounds, I think at least in round 6, we were asking agreement with statements. I see myself as a world citizen. It's a little bit different indicator, but in the same direction. So it should be possible to construct a remotely similar measure also from wave 6.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I should try that too.
And also wave 8 is now coming, so very soon we will have fresh data from Canada, USA, and other countries. So wave 8 is not published, but it's being produced at the moment.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that.
I don't know about Japan, but I think Japan is also planning it.
I hope so.
Yeah, so you will see once it's available, you can look at the more recent data.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think we are pretty close to the end of our session. Are there any final comments in the chat? Let's see. Seems to be not the case. Yes. Yutaka Nagashima, please. So Mr. Nakashima is applauding you.
Just uploading.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yeah, thank you very much. for
Okay.
your-
Thank you very much for this wonderful talk. It was very interesting and inspiring, and we had a good audience, more than 20 people. And you can watch it again on the YouTube channel of the WVS survey. And the head of the Secretariat has, as usual, the last word.
Well, no, not
Or-
really. It was
Yeah.
another question, but if you prefer to close, I'm fine.
No, we have time.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to ask the presenter, because we spoke a lot about potential predictors of national parochialism, how to measure it, but what do you see the main effects or consequences, and which of them would be most potentially dangerous for the modern world and the situation where we all live today? Thank you.
Can you can you say it again? It's more in details. Yeah.
Yes. So if you think of national parochialism as a phenomena, is it something that is likely to lead to negative consequences for,
Yes.
and would it be for the specific countries, only also for international relations in any way? What do you see as the major challenges that national parochialism creates, especially if if this sense has grown during the years of the pandemic?
I mean that the problems that the national parochialism can create is basically the conflict. If it comes with like hostility, out group hostility, then it can cause like a conflict, like the Ukraine war. So actually, having a very extreme level of national parochialism is quite dangerous. Like for example, the level of national parochialism is quite high for one person, he might think that gaining something for that country at the cost of other countries can be justified. So I think if this kind of like a mentality prevails, then we see like a lot of conflict in the world. So we should avoid this kind of situations, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But if you look at your hierarchy of countries that is right now on the screen, so one of the countries on top are Japan, for example, Greece and Finland. And well, if you don't go back too much long in the history, in principle, at the moment, they are all very peaceful and non-conflict countries.
True, yeah, but it's still like 1.3 or something. And what I'm afraid is like it goes to like 2.5 or 3 or something, 2.5 or something like that, meaning that everybody is so extreme. So we still are not in that position, so we are still safe, but we should avoid becoming such extreme, I think.
Okay, and there is one question in chat also from Yutaka Nagashima. So can it be not necessarily a sense of hostility, like maybe sense of detachment, isolation?
Yes, so if I understand correctly, national parochialism is a measure to measure the closeness,
Right.
emotional closeness to other countries or its own country.
Mhm.
So it doesn't imply hostility.
Right,
It
yes.
implies like ignorance or
Yeah.
attachment.
Yeah, what I meant was that if national parochialism come without group hostility, then it can cause some like international conflict. So
It
it's
can be a ground for international conflict, but it can. It
together
doesn't
with out
necessarily
group,
cause.
together with out group hostility.
I see.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think your thesis about conflict in the Southern Caucasus is partly confirmed because Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia are all very high on the scale. So this Southern Caucasus, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, with the open conflict between Azerbaijan and Georgia, is a confirmation of your thesis that this might cause international conflicts.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely right. But it also means that we see here two patterns. One is with hostility, and the other one is a more simple detachment. So potentially there can be two subtypes of national parochialism identified in terms of consequences.
Yes, there's a scale, open hostility, war between neighbors, and other one is isolation. Isolation, just cut off everything with a neighbor and try to have a, like USA, isolating from everybody else. So I think this is a scale for parochialism, which on the one hand has open conflict, on the other hand has just closing the border and look inside. Okay, so I think we have expired our time. Thank you very much again. Thank you for a wonderful talk, and thank you to the participants for your interesting and challenging questions. And congratulations to the speaker. It was really impressive and will be on the YouTube channel of Further Survey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Take care.